This is the Shenzhen Uyghur Autonomous Region of China, located at the very northwest of the country where China borders Mongolia and Kazakhstan. And it's not just some region, we're talking about a massive area of over 618,000 square miles. By the way, it's the 8th largest region in the world. Imagine a land where not even the hardiest plant dares to settle. Now imagine millions of tiny fish being poured into this hot, parched land. No rivers, no lakes, just endless dune and heat. Sounds absurd, right? But this is exactly what China did in one of the most ambitious ecological experiments the world has ever undertaken. China took millions of fish, moved them into the middle of the desert, and left them there for a year. The result? Something no one saw coming. This is no science fiction tale. It's a live-action experiment that stretched the boundaries of science, biology, and climate ingenuity, and the conversion that came to pass was nothing less than miraculous. In this video, we're telling the full story, why China did this, how they did it, and why the whole world, planet Earth, should be listening. So hold on to your hat, because what happened next is absolutely incredible. 1. The desert that was never meant to grow. First, the location, the Tanganga Desert, one of the most inhospitable and arid stretches of land in northern China, spanning more than 36,000 square kilometers. It's a land where sandstorms are commonplace, rainfall falls infrequently, and daytime temperatures soar to 50 degrees Celsius (122 degrees Fahrenheit). It has been spreading for decades, inching dangerously close to farmlands and human settlements. The Chinese government, which had long viewed desertification as a problem, initiated a series of projects designed to combat this burgeoning environmental menace. The trees were planted, water pipelines were extended, and satellite monitoring became commonplace. But there was one radical idea that shone through, bringing aquatic life into the desert. Yes, fish in the desert. It sounded absurd at first, but beyond this notion lay a strategic plan, not only to restore lost wetlands, but to create entire aquatic ecosystems capable of fighting the desert from within. Yet this wasn't a matter of just dropping fish in a hole in the ground. It was hope. It was about taking the desert and turning it into something alive, something that could sustain itself. The goal: turn this unfriendly land into a biological bastion against desertification. But China first had to get water in order to do that, lots of it. 2. Creating artificial oases. It began with a network of artificial reservoirs and small lakes. Using state-of-the-art water-conserving irrigation technology and strategically diverting off nearby water sources, Chinese engineers initiated a construction of artificial oases in select regions of the Tanganga Desert. These were not large ponds, but a meshwork of small ponds constructed to retain moisture and sustain wetland environments. These oases were meant to be self-regulating, complete with solar-powered filtration systems, recycled runoff, and detention underground to minimize water loss. Once the infrastructure was established, it was time for Phase 2, filling these waters with fish, but not just any fish. Enter a hearty breed known as tilapia, nicknamed the cockroach of the water for its toughness. In this attempt to bring in a streetwise warrior, tilapia can tolerate harsh conditions, feed on algae and detritus, and breed in abundance, making them more than ideal subjects for an experiment in extreme environments. They injected millions of tilapia fingerlings into the ponds. The question was, would they survive? Would they more fundamentally change the way the world worked? Even so, the idea was met with laughter by most. Fish in the desert? They're going to die in a month, critics said. But China wasn't experimenting merely for novelty. This was long-term environmental engineering, and 1 year later, the results astonished even the scientists running the project. 3. 1 year later, life finds a way. 12 months passed. The desert sun blazed on. But when researchers returned to the pockets of civilization, they weren't met with floating corpses or parched water beds. What they found instead was life, vibrant, expansive, and transforming the desert. The tilapia hadn't merely survived. They bred, doubling and even tripling their numbers in places. Algae spread through the waters, forming food chains for other tiny organisms. Then birds started showing up, lured by the plentiful fish. Insects too. And then came the totally unexpected vegetation. Shrubs and grass had begun to sprout around the ponds where there had just been dust and sand. Native grasses, shrubs, even aquatic plants started sprouting naturally along the banks. Fish had added nutrients to the water and soil, their excrement served as fertilizer. They were stirring the water and keeping it from stagnating. Even more impressive, the water levels held. Thanks to clever design and natural cycles of the ecosystem, evaporation was reduced. And rainfall, infrequent as it was now being captured more effectively by plant life. What China had built was more than a fish habitat. It was a microclimate, a living, breathing oasis that fought back against the desert. Parts of the Tanganga Desert weren't growing. For the first time in decades, they were shrinking. For the bigger picture, climate engineering. It wasn't a feel-good fish story. What China showed was the possibility of bioengineering ecosystems to turn back environmental collapse. Indeed, this experiment has now spurred similar projects in other desert areas around the globe, particularly in the Middle East and North Africa. With its techniques, they are developing country-specific models of desertification, food security, and biodiversity which are sustainable and low-cost to execute. There's also a climate resilience aspect. Artificial oases assist in balancing temperature and moisture in their nearby surroundings. They act as carbon sinks. And as fish populations rise, so does the promise for sustainable aquaculture, even in places long deemed unsuitable for habitation. But the implications run even deeper, challenging the assumption that deserts are dead zones. China's Desert Fish Project, with just the right mix of technology, biology, and willpower, they can become engines of life and even prosperity. Of course, challenges remain. The need for water conservation remains. This is key to understanding all local ecosystems, and every step must be guided by long-term sustainability. For now though, success in the Tanganga Desert is providing some hope, a reminder of what's possible when we work with nature, not against it. 5. The audacious experiments of humanity. As the world confronts increasing climate crises, China's Fish in the Desert initiative is one of a growing list of audacious, sometimes strange, but often brilliant experiments that are redefining our future. From cloud seeding in Dubai, to floating cities in the Netherlands, and vertical forests in Singapore, these projects may seem like something out of sci-fi, but are quickly becoming our new reality. And they pose an important question: what if our most desperate habitats are not hopeless at all? What if wastelands, deserts, polluted waters can become sites of regeneration, whereby science becomes an act of cooperation with, not domination over, nature? Fish helping to green the desert sounds crazy, until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, it alters what we believe is possible. This isn't just about the sand and fish in China. They are pouring hope into a planet that sorely needs it. Conclusion. So the next time someone tells you an idea is too crazy not to work, just tell them about the millions of fish in China's deserts. And then tell them about how an entire ecosystem awoke in a place that was once considered dead. How science, creativity, and perseverance transformed sand into sanctuary. Because what the story of the desert fish is really about isn't biology, it's about possibility. About being bold enough to imagine a better future, and brave enough to create it. Because in the end, the story of the desert fish isn't just about biology, it's about possibility, about daring to imagine a better future and having the guts to build it. Thanks for watching. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life breakthroughs and mind-blowing stories from around the world. And let us know, what place on Earth do you think should be transformed?